Hi, everyone. My name is Devin. I'm from Brewster Ladies Library. This program is sponsored by the Brewster Ladies Library Association and its members. I would also like to give a shout out to some libraries who helped co-sponsor this event. And those libraries in no particular order are Falmouth, Weldon, Yarmouth, Catuit, Provincetown, Centerville, and Vineyard Haven. So a little bit about this program. This class, we will cover what goes on in the kitchen, how in this most important of rooms, we can plan, organize, and use our creativity to make healthy and delicious choices. Topics will include food shopping, cooking ideas, kitchen organization, and your recipes. We'll learn some tips, and you can share some of your own if you'd like. And throughout, we're going to enjoy beautiful paintings. A little bit about our presenter, Judy. She is an MNSRD LDN. She's a registered dietitian who translates the science of nutrition into practical recommendations. In her classes, Judy teaches how great food choices and other healthful behaviors can reduce inflammation, promote good health, and help us to feel our best. She uses fine art paintings to convey her messages and inspire great choices. So I'm going to turn it over to Judy.
Thank you so much, Devin. I really appreciate that kind introduction. I'm going to start by sharing my slides. Can you see that? Okay, thank you. So first of all, I'm really glad that you're all here. It's nice to see, so many people, and it's nice to be back presenting to the Brewster Ladies Library. I'm really happy to be asked. So thank you, Devin. This class, as Devin said,
Sorry to interrupt. We can see your files on the side. Can you stretch sideways
oh,
on your screen?
does that help?
Yes, if you can go a little bit further.
Sure. How's that?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, I know you can probably still see the slides on the side. Is that,
No, that's fine.
oh, you mean the
Yep.
files on the laptop? Okay.
Yeah, on your desktop.
Okay, so sorry about that. It's just so hard to tell what people can see. Is that good?
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so thank you. So I'm going to be talking about being in the kitchen, and that's important because we eat more healthfully if we actually cook, and to do that, we have to spend time in the kitchen. And in addition to that, I actually think that spending time in the kitchen can nourish us. It can make us feel good in many ways. Sometimes being in the kitchen feels fun and creative. Sometimes I know it just feels like a chore and can even be boring. So I want to try to, present ways that more often than not, it can feel productive and we can feel like we're organized and happy in the kitchen. You'll see that this class is kind of a mishmash. I refer to it that way, a variety of suggestions, some from my experience, some from things I've read, many from people in my classes like you. So I hope that this will give you some helpful ideas. Please feel free to share any of your own. You can put them in the chat box if you want. But my hope is that everyone leaves with, at least a couple ideas of how things might go better for you in the kitchen if you need help in that regard. Um, I also want to say there is a handout that Devin will be sending electronically to everyone that covers a lot of what I'm going to say. It's a 2-page handout. Obviously, it doesn't have every word, but it has the main points from the slides. So you'll get that information. I hope that'll be helpful to you. So what we're going to cover, as Devin alluded to, is a little bit about food shopping, some cooking ideas, kitchen organization, your recipes as in where you get them and maybe how you store them. And throughout, I want to show you some beautiful paintings. There will be a few because I think that helps bring any of these topics about food to life. And what I really want to try to answer is in this most important of rooms, how can we plan and organize and use our creativity to make healthful and delicious dietary choices? Okay, this is a picture of Rembrandt's kitchen in Amsterdam. If you happen to be in Amsterdam, you can go to Rembrandt's house and you can see this kitchen. This is recreated. It's his actual kitchen, but his things were taken. He went into bankruptcy later in his life, and most of his things were taken very sadly. But there was a list from banks and creditors, so they've recreated his kitchen into what it probably would have looked like. And I just think it's beautiful and functional, the way a kitchen should be. And I want to say our kitchens should serve us. We shouldn't feel like we're spending all our time cleaning and serving the kitchen. So here's the dilemma that I know I encounter sometimes, and maybe you do too. Do you ever walk into your kitchen and think, what am I going to do? I have no idea what to do. I've got to get dinner or some meal on the table. I know I have food, I have ingredients, I even know how to cook a little, but I don't know what to do. So I think this class kind of came out of that, like working on that problem. So I want to talk about food shopping first. Um, I'm a big fan of keeping a shopping list, and maybe some of you are too. I highly recommend it. And I think a shopping list should be an ongoing project as opposed to something that we just put together right before we're going to go shopping. Ideally, it's an ongoing project. So things to put on the shopping list would be staple foods. Add them as soon as you use up anything that's really important to you, put it on the list. Ingredients for recipes. You might have recipes you want to try, but you can't make it if you don't have the ingredients, at least most of the ingredients. And I recommend that we work on the list right after we shop. I think of it as part of the shopping trip. Just like you have to come in and you have to put the groceries away, I think it's a really good idea to restart the list. Cross off what you got, maybe start it on a new page, or if you do it digitally, wherever you do it, but make it a continuous thing and think about where you keep it. If it's hard to access, if you have to go through too many clicks or a lot of looking around to get it, you're not going to want to do it. But if it's right there, front and center on your counter or your phone, it's easier to keep. Shop smart. And by that, I mean, bring your list with you. I bet you everyone here has had that experience where you mean to bring the list and you forget it and you really needed it. Yeah, it happens. But in general, it's really good if we actually bring it. Don't shop when you're hungry for the obvious reason that we do too many impulse buys of a lot of unhealthy foods. We kind of lose our reason, when we're hungry. Buy the best ingredients. And by that, I mean the best ingredients in your budget, of course. Everyone has a different food budget, but buy ingredients that will enhance your cooking. It might be that you have a certain kind of salt you really like, or maybe several. Maybe you like to use a really good extra virgin olive oil. Another example is vanilla. If you like to bake and you're using vanilla extract, there's pure vanilla extract, and then there's imitation vanilla extract, which is mostly sugar water. So it does make a difference in the flavor. And this next one is just my opinion. I think shopping often works really well. But I know that might not work for everyone, or you may prefer not to. But what I find is if I shop almost every couple of days, sometimes even more often, I am more willing to seek out the right things, read some labels, put the extra work in, than if I know I have to do a huge shopping because it's only every couple of weeks. You may have heard the piece of advice to shop the perimeter of the supermarket. This is, I'm just going to move this over again. There. This is commonly given advice. I hear it often from people. And in fact, I don't agree with it. Because if you look in the box on the slide, and you say, what do these items all have in common? Beans, whether they're dried or they're canned, oatmeal, tea, dried oregano. brown rice, walnuts, tomato paste, frozen spinach. Maybe you're beginning to notice a couple things. First of all, they're all really healthful. And secondly, you're not usually going to get them on the perimeter. So people say that because they think the perimeter has all the fresh food, like produce and fresh meats. And while that may be true, we need what's in those aisles if we want to get these other ingredients that really enhance our meals and enhance our cooking. So it's not that simple, just the perimeter. Keep your staples on hand. What I have listed here are just some things that I think are staples, but we probably all have somewhat different staples. Think about the ingredients that you need and that you use often and that you'd kind of feel at a loss without, and make sure that you have them on hand. And if you're running low, they're on your list. Onions are great. I know a lot of us love onions or maybe leeks or scallions in our cooking. I love this Renoir of onions. It's at the Clark Art Institute, and he really captured those onions in a gorgeous way. And where would we be without onions in our cooking? A lot of really nice meals, a lot of soups, casseroles, stir fries, stews, start with a mixture, maybe sauteing onions, peppers, garlic, maybe some other seasonings. So got to have those ingredients on hand. Okay, that's it for shopping. I'm going to move on to some cooking ideas. Here's another painting. This is a Cezanne. From the 1860s. And I want to say the things we use in our kitchens can be simple, beautiful, and functional. And what we cook can be simple and delicious. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate or too fancy. I apologize, I don't know why I'm having trouble advancing the slide. There we go. So we should all try to cook some delicious meals at home. It's healthier to eat at home. There's going to be less salt, less saturated fat, less sugar, and less refined grains, usually, if we cook at home as opposed to going out to dinner. Not to say we should never go out to dinner, but usually it's going to be healthier. And then we can nourish ourselves. And if you're cooking for your family, nourish them by using a lot of really good ingredients. Like if you're trying to get in, for example, a lot of leafy greens, you can make a point of doing that when you're cooking at home. You'll have better control of your portions, and you will save money in general by cooking at home. Here's another painting I love. It's just so humble, but a sign of a good meal to come, I think. This is Chaim Soutine. He was from Belarus and ended up in Paris, and just a simple place setting. So everyone should have recipes that you can fall back on so that when you have those times when you're thinking, I don't know what I'm going to cook, I have no idea, maybe you have a few recipes that tend to work out for you, that you tend to have the ingredients for. I recommend that you compile a list of your favorites, just jot them down in one way or another, and maybe also think of some that you would like to work on. Maybe you, like me, want to work on something like eggplant parmesan or, something that you've tried once or twice, but you want to get better at. So put it down, write it down. That's the first step. And then use your recipes and maybe some photos of your recipes as inspiration. So by that, I mean, taping recipes up into cabinet doors makes it super easy to access those recipes while you're cooking. If it's a cabinet right above your counter space where you would cook, and maybe snap a photo of something that came out well, or even cut pictures out of magazines or print from online of a salad you like, an entree you like. It truly is inspirational to have these hanging on the fridge or sitting somewhere where you can look at them. It's a good idea to prep ingredients in advance. So wash fruits and vegetables when you get them home from the store. Cook, if you use whole grains in your cooking, maybe cook a batch of whole grains. For example, rice, brown rice, quinoa, barley, and you can refrigerate these for several days or freeze them and then have them on hand when you want them. And you can chop ahead and even freeze onions, leeks, ginger, and they're ready when you need them. In general, of course, things like onions are going to taste better if you chop them fresh. A good time to chop them, though, is if you're going away. If you're going to be away for a couple weeks and you've got things like onions and leeks on hand, chop them and freeze them so they don't go bad, and you'll have them when you get home. Um, Be your own kitchen maid. This painting is by Jean-Baptiste Simeon Chardin and hangs in the National Gallery of Art in Washington. And it's the kitchen maid. And she probably was a real kitchen maid. I don't think anyone knows her name or anything like that. Um, but when I say be your own kitchen maid, what I mean is this. None of us have a kitchen maid. Probably, I don't think. Like most people haven't had a kitchen maid, it's not a position anymore that we encounter. But there's a lot of prep that needs to be done, and it sure feels good to have it done when we go to put together that entree or that soup or dessert or whatever it is. Here's another one. This is from almost 100 years earlier by Gerrit Douw, a Dutch Golden Age artist, called A Girl Chopping Onions. This is thought to be what's called a genre painting. In other words, this young lady may not have actually existed. He may have just made her up. Um, and also reading about this painting, I discovered there's a lot of things in the painting that are supposed to have like sexual connotations. Um, so I'm not getting into that, but it's the onions. She's chopping a massive, I don't know whether to call that a bowl, but some container of onions, which is so unpleasant for a lot of us. For many people, that's the one of the least pleasant kitchen chores because it stings our eyes and makes us cry. So what I wanted to say is if you don't like chopping onions or garlic or any particular kitchen task, more the reason to get it done. If you knew you were going to need them in the evening and you got it done in the morning and you put them in the fridge and covered them up, you'll be thanking yourself later. There's a French concept called mise en place, which roughly translates into everything in its place. And many chefs use this idea. It's a great idea. It's more of the same. It's really having everything set up. So think of when you've watched a cooking show and it seems very easy for the chef on TV because everything is there in little bowls. This is what has happened. Someone has read the recipe from beginning to end. You've probably had the experience, like I have, of getting into a recipe and finding you're missing a key ingredient or something needed to sit in the fridge for 3 hours or overnight after you got to a certain point. So it's a good idea to at least scan the recipe. It's good to have everything you're going to need within easy reach before you start, including like measuring cups and spoons, bowls, pots, and pans. Measure out your ingredients and then prep, like wash vegetables, chop onion, drain and rinse beans, peel potatoes, juice and grate lemon, or anything else you can do ahead of time. It is like you have your own sous chef or that kitchen maid. Oh, and speaking of, prepping lemons, this is another Cezanne. Beautiful painting with an orange, a lemon, and a lime, which these can brighten the flavor of so many dishes. It's incredible what lemon in particular can do, and also sometimes some orange zest. So maybe think about having those on your list of staples. Cook once and eat twice. I feel sure a lot of you do this, but it's great. It is so great to have leftovers or even enough for 3 meals. So double or triple recipes, and then you're all set. You have to do this intentionally. You have to make sure you have, double the ingredients or triple the ingredients. And yes, it is a little more work, but it's really nice to have those in the freezer or the fridge if you're going to eat them, in the next day or two. On busy evenings, you are all set. And I just want to throw in there that anything you're going to be microwaving, I would highly recommend that you store it in glass, not plastic, so you can put it right into the microwave without putting plastic into the microwave, which may not be the safest practice. Here's a fun idea to try if you haven't already tried this. Sheet pan meals. It's kind of like the name implies, everything you're going to eat pretty much, maybe not the dessert, but things are on the sheet pan that you may line with parchment paper. But the protein, so in this case, like the shrimp, the starch, which is bread here, and the veggies, all on the sheet pan. I got this one from the foodnetwork.com, and I have that reference is on your handout that you'll be getting because there's many, many of them. And lots of other sites have them too, and you could just make up your own. Very easy to cook this way, and depending on the recipe, you might need to add things at different times. I believe in this one, the bread got added a little bit later than in the zucchini, but still easy to do. Okay, so in the Boston Globe a couple of years ago, one of the food writers, Cheryl Julian, had an article about sheet pan meals, and it just all sounded so appealing. And I actually emailed her, which you can easily do, through the Globe website or whatever. She gives the email address. And I wanted to know what kind of baking pan she recommended using for the sheet pan meals. And I was fully prepared for her to say some very expensive baking pan. But no, she actually recommended this one at Target, Nordic Well Naturals Baker's Half Sheet at a very good price. So I was really happy to see that. Another great, nutritious, fun, attractive thing to make is a protein bowl. And these also can be called Buddha bowls, energy bowls, nourish bowls. They go by different names. But basically, what you have here is a deep dish, like a bowl, maybe a flattened bowl, filled with vegetables, a protein source, a whole grain, and nuts or seeds. And of course, you can add other ingredients. You could get some berries in there, really whatever you want. It looks to me like the protein sources in this picture from Wikipedia are tempeh and edamame, soybeans. So this would be a nice vegetarian protein bowl with avocado and radishes and some leafy greens. It looks like white rice, but brown rice would be better. And then you'd of course want to add some flavor, either in the form of oil and vinegar or some kind of dressing, maybe hummus, maybe mashed avocado, maybe salsa. When these first were becoming popular, I asked myself, well, what's the difference between this and a salad? Because a lot of us are already making salads. And I think the answer is there's always going to be a high protein food, ideally. And the ingredients are separated into their little wedges like this, not mixed up the way they are in a salad. Of course, salads are great too. Another fun thing to do is a salad bar on your counter, table, or island at home, or wherever you want to serve. This is fun with company. So just on what you see on the left is the bowl of the greens, and then put out the things that you might ordinarily have put in the salad and let people pick and choose as if they're at a salad bar. So this is fun. And also if you've got some picky eaters like that don't like tomatoes or don't like olives or something, you've given them a choice. And finally, another fun salad is the mason jar salad. Maybe some of you have tried this. I do have a recipe here, tons of recipes online, and you can just figure it out. You're putting these salad ingredients and layering them in a little jar, mason jar, ball jar, any jar you want. Um, and I don't know why these are so appealing, but they are because we all make salad probably and serve it in a bowl or on a salad plate, but something about these little jars, and also because there's a tight lid on it, people sometimes make several and can eat them for a few days. So it can be, very efficient. And I don't know if I just mentioned it, but this recipe, if you're interested, it will be on the handout. In the evening, great idea to do some prep for the next day. I know we're all tired in the evening, but let's say you're pretty sure you're going to have oatmeal in the morning. You want that. So let's say you got out the ingredients like the oats and maybe you like raisins and cinnamon and you put it in a pot, everything but the liquid. Maybe you set the table, which might literally be a napkin and a spoon. And you might even think about lunch and dinner the next day. What I find this does is it's a great stress reducer. Even though you've only spent a minute or two, there's something about coming down the next morning and seeing that, and some of the work has been done for you, by you, so you can thank yourself. Here's a quote that I wanted to share with you. I love this idea. Judy Rogers was a renowned chef, I believe mostly in California, in the San Francisco area. And in her book called The Zuni Cafe Cookbook, she wrote, make dishes more than once and pay attention to the slight or substantial differences in each variable and how each affects the results for better or the worse. These insights and surprises are your reward. Probably some of you do this, but the idea here is really, in a nutshell, take notes. If you have something you're working on and you really want to get good at a particular recipe or even just competent at it, I feel that way sometimes, take notes. Don't give up on it if it doesn't come out perfectly. Write it down because if you don't try again for another couple months, you might not remember that, you wanted more salt or less salt or more onions or whatever. So take notes and have fun with it. Okay, I'm going to move on to kitchen organization. I think that we do better when we have an organized kitchen. So here goes. Um, think about your kitchen essentials. Think about the items in your kitchen that help your kitchen run smoothly. Like, you have that spatula you can't live without, or your wooden spoons, or your favorite pot. And also the items that make you happy, because that's important too. Just with how they look and maybe the memories they hold, even if you're not actually quite using them in the cooking. Those things are important too. So think about what you love in your kitchen. It's possible you have some things you love that are put away and not out on display, and it would be great for you to take them out. This is I think, beautiful painting by Berthe Morisot, French Impressionist woman, of a cut apple and a pitcher. And I can't help but think that maybe she loved these items. Even if she didn't have to do her own cooking, she probably didn't. But maybe she loved this beautiful pitcher and the pretty knife. It's got a pretty handle and this cutting board. So again, items that make us happy. I think we should love our dishes. Think about the dishes you're using and do you love them or at least like them a lot? This is a plate with two pomegranates. It's in the Louvre in Paris from about 1500. Obviously, nobody's eating off of this or anything like this. And our dishes can range from, they run the gamut from inexpensive things like Corelle, which I believe can be very pretty and very functional, stoneware, which is pretty but has the disadvantage of, maybe chipping, fine china that some of us still have and love. And, if you haven't tried this yet, mixing and matching all of the above and any other dishes that you might have can be a lot of fun. Use your special items. This is a Gauguin of, a vase of flowers and a couple pretty bowls. We should all use our special items. They're for us. The concept of kitchen real estate, no matter how big or small your house or your kitchen, we all have a certain limited amount of space and things run more smoothly. And I think we're happier in the kitchen if items are in the right place. We should keep accessible our favorite ingredients. If you have favorite spices, favorite oils, favorite whatever, keep them where you can get to them easily. Utensils, pots, pans that you use a lot should get the most convenient cabinets and drawers and counter space. Certain appliances, I believe, can actually help us to eat more healthfully. I'm thinking of like a blender, if you use it to make a healthy soup or healthy smoothies or juices. A rice cooker can be used for all kinds of whole grains, not just brown rice. If you have to put these away and then lift them out every time you want to use them, I think you're less inclined to use them than if you give them counter space. And by the way, this and any of the other topics, I'd love to know what you think about this and what your experience is. So again, do feel free to put it in the chat. Great idea to have a kitchen sorting and cleaning. Oh no, we have to clean. But again, I think we're happier in a well-organized and clean kitchen. So cabinets, fridge, maybe you have a pantry. If it needs it, it's all got to be cleaned. And we can ask ourselves realistically, how long will this take? I do not believe the articles that I've seen that seem to imply you can do this all in one day. But I see that when I've read decluttering things and listened to podcasts. No, my experience anyway is that it takes a long time. And let's say you're willing to tackle 1 or 2 cabinets a day, this process might actually take weeks. But that is okay. What's the rush? I just wanted to put that out there. We should purge what's no longer useful. And by purge, I simply mean get rid of because it's taking up space. And we can, put the effort into finding things a good home. Maybe we know someone who can use an item we're not going to use anymore. Maybe, there's organizations we can give them to. There's a lot of options before we get to the trash, ideally. And then, if then you might have some more room and think about if the lack of something has been holding you back. You might find that there's certain utensils that you'd really like to have. Maybe you don't have that blender, but you'd really like it. Maybe there's certain ingredients that you'd like to try, and now you have a little bit more cabinet space or fridge space. And so you might actually get to shop. I'm a big fan of kitchen vignettes, which is just my term for pleasing arrays of foods or other items that help you to cook and eat better, and again, just can make you happy. This might be as simple as a bowl of fruit or even putting out some vegetables. It might be that you have a spice rack that's visible. I love that idea. I don't have that, but a spice rack on the wall, because those little jars of spices can be pretty attractive. It might be jars of dried beans, lentils, bran, pasta, putting them in jars and displaying them. Might be pots of herbs or a shelf with cookbooks. We all have differing ideas about what's attractive. Some of you, like me, might even see the charm in certain canned foods and, want to have a few of those out. So it's completely up to you what makes you happy. So the idea of keeping fruit out is great. This is Pierre Bernard. He was a French post-impressionist, and this is a dramatic bowl or basket of fruit. And the fruit is really bright as opposed to the muted background. And fruit can be really beautiful. Also on this one, I think the fruit is really beautiful. This hangs at the MFA in Boston. Giovanni Spadino, Italian master. I don't have a date on here. I don't know that anyone knows the exact date of this painting, but he painted in the 1600s. And like the last painting, the fruit just stands out vividly against the dark background. Let me go back to that other one. So they have that in common. Um, this one's a little unrealistic in the massive amount of fruit, maybe, but still, I think very pretty. We can all do this. We can all make a display of fruit and health benefits here because, especially going into the time of year we're going into, where there might be a lot of other tempting goodies. If we see it, we can choose it. And we might think, oh, I can make applesauce, or I might take a banana and make a really healthy smoothie or something like that. So it just kind of reminds us.
We just got a really nice comment from Trish. She says, I try to keep my carrots and celery on the middle shelf. When I open the fridge, it's the first thing I see, and I'll grab it for a snack. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect example of keeping it visible. Great. Um, if you happen to have a windowsill, I think you have to have a windowsill, either that or some kind of a grow light, but having potted herbs in your kitchen, or maybe you don't have to put them somewhere else where there is a windowsill, it's great for recipes and can be very, very pretty. A vignette on its own. This is Van Gogh of a flower pot with garlic chives. And finally, another Cezanne. He was just so great for everything kitchen. And just, another arrangement of meaningful and useful items, a bowl and a milk jug. These had to be useful in his kitchen. I want to make the case for putting bran out in jars. I think I mentioned that a minute ago. Bran, lentils, pasta, whatever you want to put out in jars can be really pretty. It can also serve you well nutritionally. So a lot of us don't get enough fiber, and buying bran, whether you're buying a box of wheat bran or oat bran, those are the two most common ones, although there are others, wheat bran and oat bran. Um, gives us extra fiber. Wheat bran is mostly insoluble fiber. Oat bran is mostly soluble fiber. Both of them really, really good for us. Let's say you buy bran, one of them, and you buy it for a particular recipe, or you think you're going to use it a lot, and you put it away in a cabinet, or it's in your fridge, but it works its way to the back. You will find it a year later. Probably this has happened. I've had this happen. But if you have it out in a jar, again, it looks pretty, things in jars, but also you'll use it. If you see it, you're more inclined to add it to cereal, yogurt, smoothies, baked goods. So get it out there. Organize your kitchen the way you like. It might be that you have some neat containers, or maybe you want to pick some up. They can be, antique crocks. They can be pitchers that you have. But holding utensils that you use often in a crock is attractive and convenient. This one I read in another Globe food article. Dish detergent in a little ceramic pitcher diluted with water by your sink can be a really handy way to wash your dishes quickly. And it turns out that dish detergent, yes, it can be diluted. It doesn't always have to be as concentrated as it is right out of the bottle of Palmolive or whatever you're using. And maybe a nice container for composting cooking scraps, fruit and veggie scraps and eggshells if you have a way to compost. So if you have a kitchen organization tip to share, put it in the chat. We'd love to see it. And finally,
Yeah.
Monet's kitchen.
Yeah, if anyone would like to type something in the chat, feel free. I
Thanks,
love all
Stephanie.
the pictures you use. They're really nice.
Yeah, and you had this one too in one of your announcements, and I love this. I mean, to me, it's just a gorgeous kitchen and so fitting that such a talented artist would have such a beautiful kitchen. I don't know if it always looked like this, but it's literally shiny. Everything is so
Yeah.
shiny. Beautiful. Okay, now I want to say a few words about your recipes. This is not mostly about my recipes, it's about your recipes and, what goes on with them. I love this quote that came across once in the Joy of Cooking cookbook. The fame of many a host or hostess is built on that great cake. And you could also change that cake to that great, casserole or soup or fish dish or whatever. It's really kind of nice and interesting, the idea of having a signature recipe that people know you for. I like that idea. So, the idea of working hard on a recipe to perfect it so that it's yours. You can do that.
We get another comment from Anne. She says, I agree that special pretty ceramics can help organize kitchen utensils. And
Yeah.
I've started putting canisters of things I use a lot on the counter. So yeah,
Yeah.
having nice things is nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I personally like it so much better than the empty counter look. But it's all a matter of preference. Okay, I'm showing you a recipe here, not to give you the recipe so much. What we're looking at here is potato soup. It was my a dear aunt of mine. And I want to make a point with this. It's a potato soup, and I know you probably can't entirely read it, but back in the day, and by back in the day, I mean back when, our parents, our aunts and uncles, our grandparents were, putting recipes to paper, which if we're lucky, we have. Recipes were a lot simpler. And I've read about this too. It's not just my imagination. And in this recipe, if you look closely, you might see the word some. Melt some butter, dice some potatoes, add some dried parsley. There's actually no amounts given, and it doesn't say how long you cook it. This was not negligence on their part. What is going on here, from what I've read, is that it was expected that you knew how to cook. People knew how to cook, so nobody had to tell you how much butter to put in the pan or how long to cook a soup. I just want to contrast this with the way it is today. So this is just a recipe I took for potato soup off all recipes. Everything is scripted here. I mean, obviously you can change it, but they tell you exactly how much of each ingredient, exactly how long to cook. Neither way is right or wrong. I appreciate this when I go to find a recipe online, which I do often. I don't mind having the instructions there. But if you happen to have family recipes and they're like this, give it a try. It might just come to you how long to cook it and how much potatoes to use. It's fun and it's a connection with your past family. So, where do you get recipes? This is a fascinating topic to me. We get them from so many sources. We can get them online. There's great sites like All Recipes and Epicurious and, 100, more than 100, sites. We might get them from family and friends. And, as I was alluding to, do you have recipes from your mother, your grandmother, your aunts, maybe your father? It doesn't have to be a woman. Again, I think if you have those family recipes, you're very fortunate and they're treasures. Maybe magazines. Have you ever bought a magazine in the checkout line because a recipe looked good on the cover, or you were looking through it and you saw a recipe that looks good? Newspapers can be great sources of recipes. I know that the New York Times, has really good recipes. I also know that you have to subscribe at a certain level of the New York Times to access those recipes. So I don't, so I can see them, but then when I try to click on them, I can't access them. Frustrating because people say they're very good. But I will also tell you that the Boston Globe, I've gotten many, many great recipes from them. And then finally, cookbooks. I mean, many of you, I'm sure, have cookbooks. And don't forget libraries as excellent sources of cookbooks. Yay, libraries. Because sometimes you only want, maybe to look at one recipe or one type of recipe. You don't necessarily want to buy the whole cookbook. So libraries are great for that. If you do have cookbooks, I want to give you permission to annotate, write in them, I think. Again, this is a matter of personal preference, but it's your cookbook. You want it to be useful to you, so you might want to write down suggestions for next time or whether you liked it or not. You want to put it down if it wasn't so great because, a year later, you might not remember that you didn't like something or that you loved it or next time it needs more ginger or garlic or whatever. So make the cookbook yours. Another fascinating topic is I think, is how we store our recipes. So this little picture here is, what a recipe box looks like. Maybe some of you still have that. Maybe you have your mom's recipe box or your own, but I can almost guarantee that we can no longer store all our recipes in it. Maybe you have a notebook for recipes or a series of notebooks. Maybe you keep them in a box, like a shoebox. I have had people come to see me in the past and bring recipes in like a shoebox, and that's fine. Also a bag, which doesn't work as well, but I've seen it. Maybe if you've gotten them digitally, you keep them digitally. And probably most likely is some combination. Because if you're getting them online and you're getting them from a family member and you have a recipe box, you might have to keep them in a variety of different ways, which is frustrating for those of us that like things in one place. Super organized, you can't do it. The recipes have to be in a variety of places, but that's just the way it is. And also, I want you to think about if you save recipes that you're hoping to try, where you keep those. For years, I was keeping them tucked away, um, kind of like on a shelf with cookbooks, but I couldn't see them. I discovered I wasn't trying these recipes much and they needed to be out on the counter for me to flip through them and say, okay, this week I'm going to try this one. So think about that if you really want to try a series of recipes, they need to be somewhere where you can hopefully see them. Okay, now the manner in which we cook. That's important too, and I want to show you two kind of extremes regarding the manner in which we cook. So this one, the first one, I'm going to read this passage to you. You may be familiar with, you may have a memory of, you may own Laurel's Kitchen by Laurel Robertson, Carol Flinders, and Bronwyn Godfrey. This was one of the first really well-known vegetarian cookbooks, naturally from the 1970s, when vegetarianism was still considered to be kind of maybe not counterculture, but odd. It was not the norm. Now it's so much more commonplace, which is a good thing. Um, but this was a book by these three ladies, kind of about the journey of mostly Laurel Robertson and how she became vegetarian and how it was difficult and what was involved. Um, and so here is something she wrote about the manner in which she was cooking. She wrote, getting myself to slow down and focus on one thing at a time went hard against the grain at first. The local independent radio station used to broadcast an excellent news analysis every day at 5:30, right in the midst of dinner preparations. She lived in Berkeley, by the way, California. For months, I went on working with half my mind, listening with the other. The real problem wasn't with the food, it was with the cook. A half hour of the latest, and I was decidedly rattled by the time I got to the dinner table. Um, yeah. I was gradually coming to realize that it isn't just food you serve your family. I wanted to nourish them in subtler ways as well. My state of mind couldn't help but affect theirs. So little by little, news coverage gave way to music. Before long, though, that too came to be a distraction. At last, the radio was stilled, and I was able to admit to myself how deeply satisfying it is to work in silence. Okay. And if you have any thoughts about this, absolutely put it in the chat. I'm not recommending, that we all cook in total silence. Sometimes we want to have the news on or a podcast or music or whatever it is. But sometimes it is really nice to really focus on it. I find especially if I'm trying a recipe that's difficult or I haven't made before, I really need it quiet. These days with so much upsetting news, it can be good maybe not to have that and to really just focus on preparing nourishing food. Um, so I thought I find this to be inspirational in a way.
We have a comment from Anne. She says she has four binders of her favorite recipes and ones that she wants to try. That's really ambitious. That's great.
Yeah, that is great. That is really great. Oh, and I want to say, with my recipes, when on those occasions when I do go through things in the kitchen, like cabinets, I try to go through the recipes too, because it's funny how sometimes you might come across some that you're going to say, I'm never going to make this again. Anyway, great to have them organized into binders. The other kind of opposite extreme from that by Laurel Robertson, I think is something that if you watch TV at all, you've probably seen ads for this Tavala. I think that's what it's called. Um, and I've taken clips of the ads from a YouTube video. But this is a smart oven that to get Tavala food, you have to buy their smart oven, really ingenious of them. And it's smart in that you just scan the barcode on the food items that they send you, and you put it in, and the oven sets itself for the right time, the right temperature, and you can see a picture of it. And on one of the commercials I saw, there was a lady's voice saying, I can fit in a workout, I can fit in a conference call. This is while her dinner is cooking. Yeah, I don't love this. Although I was reprimanded by someone who told me how great this was for her dad who couldn't cook anymore. He was elderly. So, maybe there's a place for it for some people. But I think that what it doesn't take into account is that cooking is something ideally that we should devote time and creativity and energy to. It's not supposed to be a zero time thing. So, I'm not loving this, even though it might be good for a limited number of people. Devin, did
I'm
you?
sorry, just
um,
to clarify, you're telling me there's a place that makes an oven and you have to buy the food from the same place that makes the oven to get your food cooked?
Yes, it's Taval. It's a small oven. I suspect it's like the size of a toaster oven. It's not a big oven.
Yeah.
And yes, you are there. It's like a meal delivery service, which there's many of, but this one
Hmm.
includes the oven so that you can scan the barcode that's on the package of, this looks like maybe it was broccoli and I don't know what, ziti or lasagna, and you're scanning the barcode, and then it is doing everything, including setting the oven. I mean, I think that already people are losing the skill of cooking. A lot of people, young people in particular, may not know how to cook. This isn't going to help that problem. And knowing how to cook is such an important skill in so many ways.
I don't watch a lot of TV, so this is big news to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good for you. And yeah, it's out there. And there's a lot of commercials for it. Okay, I just put this in for fun. Kitchen controversies. I don't have the answers to these. Well, I know what my answers would be, but these are issues that might go on when more than one person uses a kitchen. Um, and you can tell us if any of this pertains to you. But when you're cooking, are you supposed to clean up as you go or do it all at the end? When you wash dishes, can they air dry in the dish strainer? Or do you dry them and put them away right away? Or some people prefer everything to go in the dishwasher. So this is not even the right question. Exactly what can the dish towel be used for? Is it just for drying dishes, or are you allowed to wipe your hands, your counters with it? And is it okay to consolidate small amounts, whether it's cereal or ice cream? If you've got multiple containers with tiny amounts, is it okay to consolidate? If you happen to have the answers to any of these, please put it in the chat box.
Trish says that she cleans as she goes, but there's still more at the end. That's kind of where I am too.
Yeah, me too.
Um, I didn't realize it was a controversy if you put like two little bits of cereal together. What's the reasoning that it might be a bad choice?
Um, well, I'll tell you in my household, no problem with the cereal. My husband doesn't like it done with ice cream. He what he says is his mom consolidated too many things, including wine, so he's got a bad feeling about it. Yeah,
Oh,
that's what.
and Trish
Uh,
said she air dries unless people are coming over, and then she needs to put it away.
yeah, yeah, yep,
I air dry too.
yep. I guess it depends on, how much you're going to need that space soon. Yeah. I also wanted to mention, and this is a whole topic unto itself that, we could go into some other time, but eating for the health of the planet, there's so much we can say, but two really good practices for our planet, which is hurting, is to use every bit because so much food gets wasted. So, when we're chopping vegetables or, using meat or anything for that matter, to use every bit that's edible is a really good idea. And to minimize, excuse me, minimize single-use items such as plastic wrap, foil. There's no good place for them to go, and the plastic crisis is really becoming severe. So minimize the use of those whenever possible. There are often alternatives, things that aren't single use, like a lid from something else can just be used instead of plastic wrap. Blueprint for a well-run kitchen. Big part nutrition. We can't overlook good nutrition. Keeping our space, our kitchen organized, and then allowing our creativity to shine through in how we cook and how we arrange things. So be thinking about if there's anything new you might want to try in your kitchen, or when you're shopping. And totally optional, but if you want to, put it in the chat box. And what
I saw this program in the past, and I bought myself some really nice dish towels that crack me up.
isn't it funny how
So
dish towels can make us happy?
yeah, so it just makes me more pleased to be in the kitchen, something I enjoy looking at. Allison asks if we're going to get a copy of the slides. Absolutely. I will email those out to everybody.
Well, it's not actually a copy of the slides, although I certainly could do that. There is a way of sending you, but it's more the handout. Um, I guess I would say on the handout, my information's on there. If
Well,
anybody,
Allison said that's okay, that just the
okay.
handout's fine.
Yeah,
Thank
the
you.
handout has a lot of the information, and I'm always happy to hear from anyone. My information is on the handout.
We got a comment from an iPad. The person says, I'm trying to use less plastic when I buy produce, but it's very difficult because berries, etc., only come in plastic. It is difficult.
It is very difficult, and I feel your pain about that. Um, yeah, and only a plastic with the number 1 or 2 on it has a chance of being recycled. Um, so it's a real problem. Occasionally, tomatoes, berries, occasionally there still are times that I see them in like the cardboard containers. And when I see them that way, I will always choose them. But I know, it's a problem. It's a problem with the plastic. It's a bigger problem than any of us can solve alone, which is why we have to let our elected officials know that we do, this needs to change. There needs to be laws regarding it. Yeah.
We got a comment from Trish, and her and I are in the same boat here. She says, I need to do better with my recipes. I have binders, recipe cards, and she uses a digital app to save recipes from the internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot.
I mean, I do think that we have to come to terms with the fact that we're not going to have them in one place. You would have to print out all the digital ones you wanted to save and put them in the binders or the recipe box. After a point, it gets to seem like, yeah, okay, maybe we can have them in more than one place. And even if you have that cute little recipe box, some recipes aren't going to fit in that. So, yeah, it's an organizational challenge, but one that's worth ongoing working on to have those great recipes.
Anne says, just a comment. I loved that you combined the beautiful art with your presentation, and Trish gave that a thumbs up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Love the art.
I had a question from something you said earlier, about rice. So I have this idea to make just like a giant bowl of rice and eat it a little bit over time. I was told in the past that cooked rice stays good for about a week. Would that be your guess as well?
Yes, I have read that too. With many items in the fridge, 4 days is enough, but I've had rice a week and it has been fine. I wouldn't go longer than that, but yeah,
Yeah, and it's just plain. It doesn't have any other stuff mixed in with it.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Good question.